Discover the incredible moment when a millionaire dad rushes in to save his daughter from danger. Jack Reynolds had built a mansion of dreams, but in constructing his architectural empire, he'd razed the very foundation of his family life. His 16-year-old daughter, Sarah, was growing increasingly distant, a ghost hovering around the edges of his meticulously crafted world. Caught between plans for his next luxury development and the gnawing echoes of missed birthdays and hollow family dinners, Jack found himself at a crossroad. That fateful night, as he paced his polished home filled with echoes of laughter that once was, he received a call from an unknown number. Panic washed over him when he heard, "Mr. Reynolds, it's about your daughter." The unmistakable tremble in the voice sent chills down his spine. His heart raced as he imagined her sweet face in the hands of danger, prompting a rush of frantic thoughts. How had he let it come to this? Jack gripped the steering wheel of his luxury SUV harder than he ever gripped architectural blueprints. Every passing streetlight illuminated memories he wished to forget, his crumpled promises that slipped through his fingers like the finest sand. Each missed football game, the birthdays he rushed through only to return to late-night conference calls. Tonight, it all collided with present danger, and for the first time, he could feel the weight of what truly mattered. How could he mend the multi-million-dollar empire he'd built if it cost him his daughter? The raw urgency of the moment echoed through him like the thud of a wrecking ball against crumbling drywall. He skidded to a stop outside the dilapidated warehouse. Its peeling paint and shattered windows stood in sharp contrast to his glossy existence, a stark visual reminder of the vibrant life Sarah chose to walk into. Jack inhaled deeply, the cold air biting at his lungs, and stepped into a world so different from the pristine towers he'd constructed. As he navigated through a crowd clad in rebellion, tension coiled around him like barbed wire. The gnawing dread that he had failed her loomed large. Suddenly, adrenaline surged. Jack spotted Sarah, locked in conversation with a group of dubious chars who only seemed to smirk at his presence. His body tightened with the realization that a flicker of danger hovered just beyond them. Should he wield his wealth to find her safety amidst this chaos, or step forward with the moral backbone he'd intended to instill in her? Confusion gnawed at him like an insatiable hunger. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In this tangled web of youthful mischief and dark allure, Jack's thoughts splintered. Memories of his humble beginnings flooded his mind. The wake of love and integrity he'd been taught but had sacrificed for progress. Would his daughter choose swiftness or weight, fortune or family? At that moment, Jack hesitated, consuming the silence that wrapped around them like a funeral shroud. This wasn't just a father chasing shadows. It was a reckoning. As he stepped closer, searching her eyes, he felt that looming doubt. One last chance to snatch her from a path that could lead to irreversible consequences. But would she even want to grasp the hope he could offer? Or was she too far gone, intoxicated by the thrill of danger? Jack stood at the precipice, ready to plunge into the heart of everything he feared. Jack's heart pounded like a war drum as he pushed forward, each step feeling heavier than the last. He fought against a torrent of regret, the past curling around him like a suffocating fog. Why had he allowed ambition to overshadow the small, quiet moments that mattered most? As he closed the distance, Jack scanned the group surrounding Sarah. The defiance in their eyes troubled him, a stark contrast to the innocence that should have graced his daughter's face. He strained to hear snippets of their conversation, the laughter he once adored now tinged with something unsettling. He clenched his jaw, feeling the urgency course through his veins. He had to act. "Sarah!" he called out, his voice louder than anticipated, cutting through the haze. The moment halted. breath caught in the air, the crowd parting slightly as she turned. Confusion twisted her features before recognition dawned. For a heartbeat, Jack saw the flicker of a younger Sarah, the child who once ran to him with open arms. That flicker almost felt like hope. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, masking her surprise with defiance. The words cut deeper than intended. He could see the wall she had built around herself. "I came to find you," he said, the firm conviction in his voice surprising even him. "You need to come home. This isn't where you belong." Her silence screamed louder than any protest. A flood of memories flashed through his mind. Her laughter during family vacations, the late-night talks about her dreams. He felt a crushing weight, realizing that he had become a stranger to her. Guilt racked his body. He had wanted to provide her the world, but in the process, he'd forgotten to nurture their relationship. "Dad, you don't understand. You think you can come here with your money and take me away?" Her response dripped with disdain, but beneath it lay confusion and a plea for freedom. "You never really listen." Jack knew she was right. The realization was like ice plunging into his gut. All the years spent scaling the heights of wealth and prestige felt meaningless compared to the child who stood before him, feeling unheard and unseen. "I was wrong. I thought I was doing what was best for you," he started, words tumbling out in an honest rush. "But I lost sight of what really matters." At that moment, Jack realized he had a choice. He could continue insisting that Sarah leave this world or try to understand her. Would stepping away from his authority and privilege allow her to see him as someone who acknowledged her pain? For what felt like an eternity, he searched her eyes, longing to reassure her while battling his own fear of vulnerability. "I can help you," he offered softly, his heart aching. "I want to understand why you're drawn to this, and I won't pressure you. But please don't shut me out." The intensity of her gaze matched his, a tempest of emotion swirling as she contemplated the open door he had offered, a chance at both reconciliation and trust. Behind Sarah, the adults she conversed with shifted, malice creeping into their expressions. Jack's protective instincts ignited as he sensed trouble brewing. He couldn't linger in the space of uncertainty any longer. Her safety demanded action. "Let's step away for a moment," he urged, holding his hand out to her. But hesitation flickered in her eyes. Staring at her father, Sarah's rebellion clashed mechanically with the whispers of her uncertainty. It was a pulsating moment, where everything teetered on the edge of a decision that would shape their future. The stakes rose sharply. Jack felt the fear gnawing at his resolve as he braced for her answer. This was not merely about saving Sarah. It was about saving himself, too. Just as she was about to respond, the group shifted. One of the dubious characters stepped forward, a smirk betraying malicious intent. Jack's instincts flared. He didn't just need to win back his daughter. He must prepare for an impending confrontation that threatened both their futures. The air crackled with tension. Would this silence take life with an embrace or an explosion? The moment had come to face the depths of a reality he could no longer ignore. Jack's hand trembled slightly as he balled it into a fist, steadying himself against the wave of adrenaline coursing through him. The confrontational figure in front of him wore a smug expression, as if he had already won the fight that loomed. The others in the circle watched, anticipating a spectacle, their faces betraying no empathy. The suffocating atmosphere breathed hostility, as Jack realized this was not just about words anymore. It had become a matter of protection. "Step away from her," Jack said, his voice low but urgent, dripping with authority he had wielded in boardrooms, but never within the familial confines of his life. The challenge in his voice reverberated. He took a step forward, positioning himself between Sarah and the smirking stranger, instincts igniting beneath his calm facade. "Or what?" the man taunted, his cool demeanor a mask for the thinly veiled menace lingering beneath. "You really think you can intimidate me? You don't belong here, fancy suit." A surge of determination surged through Jack. He felt the weight of his failures as a father and the crushing longing to reclaim the connection with Sarah. The fear of being powerless consumed him, and he quickly realized this moment held significance beyond preservation. It was a catalyst for transformation, both for him and for Sarah. Jack's mind raced. How would he navigate this hostile situation and, more importantly, show Sarah he could fight for her? Not just verbally, but with action. Breathing in deeply, he searched for insight, as if sifting through all the lessons he had sidelined due to his relentless pursuit of success. "Listen, I'm not here to fight you," he said, forcing his voice to steady. "But know this. I care. I care about her and will not let anyone harm her." His words caught Sarah's attention, and he hoped she could hear the fervor of his commitment. The hostile figure laughed, dismissing Jack's declaration with a wave of his hand. "Care? Why would she choose you over us? You're just a shadow of a father." The accusation stung, digging deeper into Jack's insecurities. Glancing back at Sarah, he realized it wasn't simply the conversation or the looming threat. It was a defining moment. How could he transform this narrative of a lost father into one of renewed connection? A thought pierced through him. Vulnerability could become his strength. Jack turned to her slowly, his heart laid bare. "You deserve a father who listens, a father who fights for you. I'm here, right now, wanting to know who you are, what you love, and why you chose this." The urgency in his voice was palpable, laced with the rawness of his emotions. The smirk on the antagonist's face faded as Sarah's expression shifted. Jack was learning. He didn't just want Sarah to hear him. He needed her to feel the sincerity of his intentions. "Dad." Sarah's voice whispered in disbelief, her look betraying the slightest hint of hope, vulnerability peppering the fierce armor she had donned for so long. Suddenly, the tension escalated. The man lunged forward, breaking the fragile moment. Jack's instincts kicked in, surging with an unexpected assertiveness, fueled by years of personal neglect, now ignited into fierce bravery. "Get away from her!" he shouted. His movement was instinctive, a shield to protect the daughter he had nearly lost. The world seemed to slow. Jack didn't calculate his movements. He felt them surge through him, anticipating every shift in stance, every change in energy. This was not just a struggle against the physical presence before him. It was his confrontation with guilt, regret, and a desperate yearning for redemption. As chaos erupted, Jack realized that this encounter was not just a fight. It was a pivotal moment of his transformation into a father capable of nurturing, understanding, and truly engaging in the life of his daughter. All he had to do was hold on to that veracity and let it steer his resolve. But in an instant, the ground beneath him seemed to crack, and Jack wondered if he was truly prepared for what was coming next. In the whirlwind of action and emotion, could this chaotic intersection of danger and clarity propel him to rekindle meaningful relationships, or would he slip back into his former life of isolation? Would Sarah see the truth within him and embrace it, allowing them both to transform together? As they stood, teetering on the brink of a profound change, Jack's heart pounded. This was just the beginning, and the fight was far from over. Jack's body reacted instinctively, fueled by a primal urge to protect. As the man lunged, Jack sidestepped with a calculated shift, bringing his arm up to intercept the blow. The impact reverberated through his shoulder, but he didn't falter. This was not just a confrontation. This was a reckoning. He locked eyes with Sarah, a silent plea in his gaze. In that moment, amidst the chaos and fear, clarity pierced through the storm. Jack was no longer just a figure clothed in wealth and social status. He was a father energizing his resolve with the desires to change, to connect, to prove his worth. The fight intensified, but it occurred to Jack that this was the very battle he had shunned in his previous life. A battle not only against the man before him, but also against the darkness in his own heart. "Enough!" he shouted, the strength in his voice surprising even himself. Driven by the conviction that he couldn't allow fear to dictate his actions any longer, he pushed forward, aiming to physically assert himself not just against his opponent, but against his own deeply embedded insecurities. The man sneered again, but this time Jack saw through the false bravado. What Jack had initially perceived as confidence was merely a facade, brittle and cracking under pressure. Perhaps there was power in vulnerability too, he thought. If he could confront his own uncertainties, wouldn't it give him an edge? A tight knot of energy surged within Jack as he forced himself into the fray. Each move was not just about engagement, but an expression of his desire to belong, to reclaim a fatherhood that had been eroded by years of distance and neglect. The struggle was no longer about physical dominance, but about reclaiming his identity and the place he wanted to hold in Sarah's life. With every step, Jack could feel the eyes of onlookers boring into him. No longer did he hear whispers of judgment. Instead, he began to interpret their stares as silent encouragement, perhaps understanding the road he was trying to traverse. As if sensing the shift in focus, he narrowed his attention back on Sarah, who stood meeting his gaze with a blend of anxiety and awe. "Let me in," he said firmly, as if making a subtle promise. Whether to her or himself, he couldn't quite tell. "You deserve to know that I'm here for you. I will do whatever it takes." The atmosphere thickened, charged with the heat of conflict and the faint scent of hope. Jack saw the hesitance in Sarah's eyes. Her body language vacillated with caution and yearning. Was it too late for them? The thought punched him in the gut. As the antagonist prepared for another move, Jack's instincts surged. He clenched his fists tighter, not just ready to defend his daughter, but also to advocate for their future together. This was their chance, not only for survival, but for connection. If he succumbed to inertia now, they would both lose. Just as the physical tussle renewed, an unexpected crack echoed through the tension-laden air. The circle of onlookers shifted, murmurs transforming into gasps. Jack turned, and in that fleeting moment, he realized that they were not mere spectators. They were witnesses to a pivotal moment of change, a father working fervently to bridge an ocean of pain. "Sarah, trust me," he yelled, his voice breaking through. "We can do this together." As the pressure seemed to boil over, Jack felt the weight of a million possibilities bearing down on him. It wasn't just about distance and regret. It was about growth amid chaos, fostering understanding through adversity. Each heartbeat served as a reminder of his commitment, his willingness to fight, not just against outside forces, but against the very shadows that threatened their bond. But just as Sarah's expression began to brighten with hope, a crack in the ground beneath them signaled a turn of events too swift to grasp. What would the escalating confrontation reveal about their fragile relationship, and could Jack truly harness this moment for something more enduring? As he braced himself for what lay ahead, his mind raced with the consternation of possibility. Was he ready to confront the reality of being not just a father, but a partner in Sarah's life? The pressure mounted, amplifying the stakes of transformation, and as Jack's heart hammered relentlessly, he heard a whispering truth. The moment of truth was inevitably approaching. Jack barely registered the crack beneath his feet. His focus was fully consumed by the conflict before him. As he battled, sweat mixed with adrenaline coursed through his veins, channeling his fear into a surge of unexpected resolve. He was stepping into the role he had neglected for far too long, not just as a protector, but as a man willing to change, to grow. The man charged again, and this time, Jack's movements were fueled by a deeper purpose. He pivoted sharply, embodying the acceptance that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a concealed strength. In his pursuit to reclaim his bond with Sarah, he began to metamorphose into who he needed to be. With every block encounter, he threw himself into the fray, his kicks echoing not just physical force, but a declaration of intention. He would not remain a passive observer in his own life. Jack could feel energy surging from the watchers, feeding off his determination. No longer did he feel the weight of their judgment, their opinions metamorphosing into a collective understanding of his journey. a man searching for redemption, striving to restore the connection with his daughter. But even amidst this combative storm, doubts lingered like shadows at the edge of his vision. Can I really change? Can I earn her trust back? The questions whirled in his mind, all while the fight unfolded around him. The man, sensing Jack's shifting spirit, lunged again. With a newfound agility, Jack sidestepped, then swept his leg to trip his opponent, a metaphorical grappling maneuver aimed at dislodging the constraints of his past. Each successful movement was a small victory, a statement that he was moving forward, not backward. Yet the emotions tied to his concerns for Sarah dug deeper with every attack. Energized by reflective thoughts, he turned to Sarah once more. The ambiguity in her eyes pierced through him as he shouted, "I am not backing down. Not now. Not ever." His assurance was loud, each word woven with the belief that their relationship could be reconstructed from these precarious fragments. But would these words reach her? Or were they mere echoes in the turmoil raging around them? She needed him to demonstrate not just his physical prowess, but the fortitude of spirit to stay with her through the hardships. Jack had to embody the courage he wished to inspire. Just then, another tremor rippled beneath them, and the ground fractured. The shift caught everyone off guard, including Jack's opponent, who stumbled back, his sneer replaced with a flicker of uncertainty. In this moment of chaos, Jack realized this was not just a physical fight but a profound reckoning. He was grappling with not only the assailant, but also the fragments of his past that still hovered like specters. As he regained balance, Jack noticed a light of determination beginning to flicker in Sarah's eyes. A light he had thought extinguished. How could he honor that emerging spark? He needed to convey that he was here today. For her. No longer just a distant figure, he was going to make every single moment count. In a flourish of movement, drawing on every ounce of resolve he had mustered, he sprang forward. "This is for us." His words unified their mutual desire for redemption, reawakening an aspiration he thought lost. As the tide of combat rose yet again, he felt an awareness blooming within. This wasn't merely about the spat before him. It was the embodiment of a father's fight to re-establish a bond, even as the world threatened to split apart beneath their feet. And as Jack prepared to confront the man once more, his mind flooded with questions. If he succeeded here, a greater battle loomed ahead, a confrontation with his own insecurities. Would this moment of victory translate into sustainable growth? Or would the specter of his previous failures loom larger than the hope he was trying to reclaim? The stakes escalated. The pain of uncertainty nagged at his core. Yet, Jack pressed forward, driven by fierce determination, ready to confront whatever awaited him next. Because this battle, this pivotal moment, was just the beginning. With his heart racing, he could feel the obstacles ahead materializing like shadows, and he steeled himself for what lay beyond the immediate fight. The pivotal question loomed larger. How far was he willing to go to not only save his daughter, but to save himself from the shackles of a past he barely recognized? With a powerful thrust, Jack closed the distance to his opponent, channeling everything he had learned in the past weeks into this singular moment. Every punch and kick ignited a sense of purpose deeper than mere survival. This wasn't about winning a fight. It was about reclaiming both his identity and his daughter's trust. The chaos around him became a canvas, and he was painting his narrative of transformation with each calculated strike. But with each impact, he could not shake off the deeper conflicts brewing within. While he fought, his mind wandered to Sarah's face, reflecting uncertainty and longing. He knew that actions spoke louder than promises, but could his unwavering determination penetrate the chasm that had formed between them? The opponent struck back hard, but Jack was ready. His instinct to survive had evolved into an instinct to protect. Ducking, he felt the air rush by, hearing the faint gasp from the crowd. He fought for Sarah, yes, but he also fought for the man he was becoming. Each clash, a confrontation not just with the physical world, but with the very essence of who he had been. A father consumed by guilt and fear. How far? Echoed the question in his mind. As he sidestepped a heavy swing, his thoughts spiraled into the uncertainty of his journey. It was no longer a matter of just reclaiming a relationship. He was battling against the insecurities that lurked within, the nagging voice that said he was unworthy of redemption. Just as he landed a solid blow, the reverberation of his own doubt echoed louder than the cheers erupting around him. He needed a strategy, a decision that prioritized his growth as much as the fight itself. The battle, he realized, needed a foundation beyond adrenaline and physical prowess. It was about building a resilient mind, a heart open to vulnerability, elements key to any relationship, especially with Sarah. If he could acknowledge his flaws openly, it could forge the path to their reconciliation. Jack found himself faced with a limited choice: press on in the fight or pause and acknowledge the barriers looming in his mind. The choice was daunting. What if he failed? What if fetching the truth brought more pain to Sarah? Yet the possibility of forging a new connection fueled him. The rift could only be mended through honesty and a shared vulnerability. He regained composure, absorbing the electricity of the moment, and darted forward again. No more standing on the sidelines, he declared to himself, reviving the fire within. The opponent was relentless, but Jack's focus sharpened. He was channeling all that he had learned, from the training, the self-examination, and the painful realizations he had confronted. What followed was a flurry of movement, a dance of intention that fused physicality with the unsaid emotions between him and Sarah. It was a vivid interplay of past pain and future possibility, and as he fought, he roared, "We are worth it." His voice didn't just resonate in the air. It pierced the cocoon of doubt and lay bare the raw desire to rebuild. As he managed to deliver a forceful kick that sent his opponent sprawling, Jack took a deep breath. His heart was racing, but now it seemed to pulse with clarity. What he feared most wasn't the battle. It was the confrontation with Sarah, the need to show her the real him, raw and imperfect, for they needed to sketch their new narrative together. In the split second after the fall, he locked eyes with Sarah. Her gaze flickered again, this time less guarded, her skepticism giving way to curiosity, perhaps even a sliver of hope. Could she believe that he could really change? A tumult of emotions washed over him. There was yet another battle to be faced, escalating in intensity and stakes. Now, he thought, an unmistakable weight settling in his chest. With every ounce of his being, he had to find the right words to bridge the gap, to bring her into the path he was forging for them both. As the adrenaline began to fade, he could feel the reality of the moment settling in. The next battle was not just within the confines of a physical fight. It lay in the fragile landscape of personal connection, trust, and hope. As Jack prepared to approach Sarah, an urgent thought struck him. The hardest part was yet to come. Would his words resonate as powerfully as his punches? The moment had arrived for him to embody the changes he'd fought for. And in that instant, he realized this was only the beginning of a far deeper struggle. Jack's heart thumped wildly as he approached Sarah, whose expression shifted from distant skepticism to a cautious curiosity. He could sense the wall between them, built on years of mistakes and painful decisions. But now he yearned to break through. He had fought for more than victory in the ring. He was fighting for her belief in him, for a chance to be the father she deserved. "Sarah," he started, surprise evident in her eyes as he took a step closer. His voice trembled slightly, revealing the vulnerability festering beneath his tough exterior. "I know I haven't been there for you. I was lost, and I let my fears consume me." Each word felt like a punch, painful yet necessary. Her brow furrowed, and the air between them thickened with shared history, frayed by years of his absence and her silence. Jack pressed on, desperate to articulate the transformation he had undergone. "I've changed. Every fight I've taken, every sacrifice. They were never just about proving myself. They were for you. I want to rebuild, to earn your trust again." He observed her reaction, trying to decipher the myriad emotions flickering across her face. Confusion battled with anger, but beneath it, he glimpsed a hint of something softer, a glimmer of hope. Would it be enough? Jack felt as if he were standing at the edge of a precipice, and his next words would determine whether he plunged into despair or soared toward redemption. "I'm ready to be a father," he continued, his resolve hardening as he acknowledged his own failings. "Not an absentee one. I understand that trust doesn't come easily, and I know I have to prove myself, but I'm willing to do the work. I'll show you." "Show me?" Sarah interrupted, her voice rising. "Do you even have any idea what you've put me through? You can't just expect everything to fall back into place because you had a fight." Her emotions spilled forth like a tempest, and Jack felt a weight settle on his chest. She was right. His battle in the ring had been one thing, but this battle was fraught with emotional peril. If he wanted to truly connect with Sarah, he had to face her fears and his own. "Believe me, I know I can't." "I'd like to think I've learned that much," he said, the words hitting harder than any punch. "But I need you to meet me halfway. I can't do this alone. I can't lose you again." A heavy silence enveloped them, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Jack waited, his breath now shallow as he sensed the tension hanging in the air. If they were to regain a bond, it would require more than declarations. It would demand action, consistency, and time, elements he had been sorely lacking. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice quieter, but laced with determination. "You say you want to change, but how do I know this isn't just another empty promise?" Her challenge ignited a fire within him. "I'll prove it," he said, passion flooding his voice. The familiarity of the fight surged through him, but now the war he was waging was not physical. He needed to channel his struggles into actionable steps, not just for her, but for himself. "What do you need from me? I'm ready to listen." As their eyes locked, an understanding began to form, fragile yet potent. Sarah's steeliness softened just a fraction, and Jack recognized this moment as a pivotal inflection point. He breathed deeper now, absorbing the weight of the journey ahead. It would be fraught with challenges, doubts, and the specter of past failures. But for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Yet, as they stood there, a seismic shift in their dynamic, Jack realized something more pressing loomed. The demons he had fought, a mixture of guilt, shame, and fear of failure, had not vanished. In this moment of truth, he wondered if he could continue to battle them not just for himself, but for her. The feeling of urgency washed over him as Sarah took a step back, her expression cloaked in contemplation. Jack felt the pressure in his chest rise. They were at a precipice again. How could he convince her that he was worthy of her trust? The hardest battles were often fought after the dust had settled. "Sarah," he began, but the words faltered in his throat. What if the battles ahead were ones he couldn't win? Would he crumble under the weight of expectations? "What's really at stake isn't just your past or mine. It's our future," he finally said, recognizing the truth that echoed in his mind. It was now or never. And in that critical moment, with uncertainty looming over him like a dark cloud, Jack felt an approach was necessary. Perhaps confronting not only his history, but unveiling the deeply rooted courage within himself, could redefine what being a father truly meant. But just as that realization sparked clarity, a sudden commotion erupted in the crowd, a reminder that the fight was far from over, and distractions could threaten everything he had just begun to build. Jack's pulse raced as the crowd erupted in chaos, a jarring contrast to the fragile understanding he had just begun to foster with Sarah. The disruption echoed in his mind, a reminder of how easily everything could unravel. He quickly scanned the scene, searching for the source of the commotion. It didn't take long for his instincts to kick in. A group of people surged forward, discontent festering in their shouts. Jack felt the adrenaline surge through his veins, momentarily drowning out the veneer of uncertainty that had gripped him moments ago. With purpose, he stepped toward the crowd, assessing the situation while his heart hammered with a dual intensity, an urgency to protect and a need to demonstrate his commitment. "Stay here," he told Sarah, though the command sounded more like a plea. He didn't want her to see him in fight mode. He wanted her to see a man transformed, a man who could shoulder responsibility beyond the ring. Yet even as he spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another confrontation, another opportunity to prove his worth. Pushing through the throng, Jack's instincts honed in on the center of the uproar. A young girl, no older than 10, had stumbled, her eyes wide with fear as a small circle of adults bickered over the best way to handle the situation. The adults' frustration overshadowed the growing despair in her eyes. "Step back," he called, finding his assertive voice. "Let me help." The crowd stilled momentarily, surprised by his sudden emergence. Jack moved closer to the girl, kneeling to her level. "Hey, it's okay," he said, choosing words that dripped with calm. "What's your name?" "Emily," she whispered, her little hands trembling. "Emily," he repeated gently. "I'm Jack. I'm going to help you get back to your family. Can you do me a favor? Take a deep breath." She nodded, still wide-eyed, but visibly attempting to steady herself. Jack's heart swelled with a raw sense of purpose. It dawned on him then that this was a challenge more significant than what he faced in the ring. This was about connection, about trust, the very elements he had to cultivate with Sarah. "Hold my hand," Jack said, extending his palm. "We're going to walk back to your mom together. She's waiting for you." Her tiny fingers clasped his, and in that brief moment, Jack felt a spark of empowerment. He wasn't just fighting for his daughter anymore. He was fighting for every father who wrestled with their past, every child yearning for stability, every moment of clarity that could reshape a future. As they maneuvered back through the crowd, he charged through the anxiety of failure, reminding himself that this was an act of bravery, something he could contribute to someone else's life. Once they reached the edge, he spotted the girl's mother rushing toward them, panic giving way to relief. Jack watched the moment the two embraced. It marked a victory over the chaos that had just enveloped them. "Thank you," the mother breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. Jack felt a rush of warmth mixed with a bittersweet sting. It was a reminder that moments of redemption often appeared when least expected. Just when he thought he was fighting his own battle alone, he realized he had the capacity to make a difference. As he turned back towards Sarah, who had observed the entire episode with a look of tentative awe, he sensed the shift within her as well. The rawness of the earlier conflict had morphed into a new layer of understanding. "Jack, that was—" Sarah began, her voice barely a whisper. "I know I'm not perfect," he interjected, his heart still racing. "But I want to show you that I'm growing. I'm ready to be there, for you and for her. This is just the beginning." But as his words hung heavily in the air, doubt clouded his thoughts. The specter of his past mistakes loomed large. Would this single moment be enough to convince Sarah of his intentions? A shout sliced through the air again. Another dispute. This time, Jack felt a deeper urgency. If he could navigate his own fears, he could forge ahead on this path of personal growth. But each new instigation seemed to take him several steps back. "Are you with me?" he asked Sarah, searching her gaze for shared resolve. And as she held his gaze, a part of him recognized the fragility of their newly forged connection. Jack could feel the weight of expectation growing heavier. What next step would redefine their future? Just then, he noticed a figure pushing through the crowd, someone familiar, someone from his past, an antagonist he had tried to leave behind. The thrill of fighting for a future collided with the fear of confronting old demons. The past was creeping back in, and Jack had to decide whether to face it or retreat. He felt the tension tighten in his chest, unwillingly calling into question everything he thought he had just begun to build. Jack's breath hitched as he caught sight of the figure approaching, a flash of recognition slicing through the momentary calm he had found with Sarah. It was Carl, the very man whose past transgressions had shadowed Jack's life for years. Carl stood as the embodiment of everything Jack wanted to escape. He was an adversary in more ways than one. "Stay close," Jack whispered to Sarah, instinctively placing himself between her and Carl. In that heartbeat, the warmth of their recent connection crumbled under the weight of growing dread. Would Sarah see this confrontation as evidence that he hadn't changed, hadn't grown beyond the man he once was? Or would she understand that overcoming this moment was a testament to his progress? Carl's approach was slow, deliberate, each stride laden with a palpable sense of authority that felt all too familiar. Jack shifted his weight, the adrenaline spurring him to assert dominance rather than cower to the ghost of his past. He needed this fight. Not the kind exchanged in the ring, but the type that demanded personal fortitude, decisiveness in the face of danger. "Jack," Carl called out, his tone dripping with condescension. "I see you're still playing the hero. Perhaps you'd like to revisit the terms of our last discussion?" Against the busy backdrop of the crowd, Jack felt the emotions swirling, a mix of anger and the potent urge to protect whatever tenuous bond he had formed with Sarah. This was his moment. He wouldn't let Carl dictate the terms any longer. Jack took a breath, steeling himself to respond. "Tread carefully, Carl," Jack replied, his voice even, yet laced with an unmistakable edge. "I'm not the same man you once knew. I'll protect what matters." Carl's lips curled into a smirk, but Jack knew that beneath that mask of bravado lay the disappointment of someone who hadn't yet let go of past grudges. The emotional confrontation required to face his past off the canvas felt strangely heavier than any opponent he'd ever faced. "What matters? Your daughter? Or the illusion you're trying to weave here?" Carl taunted, gesturing toward Sarah. The disparaging remark stung, pulling Jack back into the shadow of self-doubt he had been fighting so hard to escape. With an iron grip on the burgeoning resolve spilling inside him, Jack turned back to Sarah, locking eyes with her to convey strength beyond words. That penetrating gaze, filled with both skepticism and introspection, ignited a fire within him. He had fought and clawed his way through darkness, not just for himself, but for every moment that echoed love and responsibility. "Carl, you ought to remember that actions shape our narratives," Jack stated, his voice resolute. "I won't engage with your games anymore. I'm here for my daughter and for the people I care about, not to rewrite a tragic history." As he spoke, he could almost feel each word solidify his commitment to growth and maturity, not simply for Sarah or Emily, but for the man he needed to assure himself he could become. Carl's expression shifted ever so slightly, a glimmer of uncertainty flickering behind his calculated facade. Jack could see that the more he stood his ground, the more he dismantled the illusion of power Carl so desperately clung to. Was this truly the turning point in which he took control not only of the moment, but the direction of his life? Behind them, the crowd continued to swell, but Jack dared not look away from Carl, fearing that would signify a retreat into his own past insecurities. "Courage is built on choices, Jack," he thought, recalling the words of an old mentor. This was a decisive choice to not only confront Carl, but a declaration to himself that he would no longer run from the roots of his anxiety. Just when it seemed the confrontation might come to a head, a loud crash erupted from nearby, pulling Jack's focused attention from Carl in an instant. There was no time to think, no space for the past to reassert itself. The chaos around him was a potent reminder that life could shift at any moment. "Jack!" Sarah yelled, her voice laced with urgency. Jack turned to see several people pushing toward a new conflict, and he felt that familiar adrenaline once more surge through his veins. "Let's go," he urged Sarah, stepping back to her side. "We need to help." As they moved together, Jack felt the path forward grow clearer, but still painfully uncertain. Would he be able to sustain his newfound resolve in the face of repeated tests? But he also felt an exciting spark, one which acknowledged that growth was not linear. Perhaps this chaotic scene was yet another opportunity for reflection and discovery, a chance to continue building the man he aspired to be. And deep down, as they navigated through the fervor of conflict, he knew a significant question awaited resolution. What would he discover about himself this time? As the clamor of the crowd echoed around him, Jack felt a surge of clarity. The earlier confrontations with both Carl and the chaotic circumstances surrounding them galvanized him. He was no longer the passive observer networking through the halls of his empire. He was actively restoring the bond with Sarah, eclipsed by remnants of his past failures. Navigating through the throngs of people, Jack focused on Sarah, sensing the mix of anxiety and determination that coursed between them. They were both in this together, standing on the precipice of a shared rebirth. With every step, he could feel the past loosening its grip, the weight of neglect being replaced with a burgeoning resilience. "Stay close," he urged softly, brushing his hand over hers, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. She glanced up, her expression shifting from uncertainty to a tentative trust that ignited embers of hope inside him. In that moment, Jack realized they were not simply walking through chaos. They were forging a path forward, together. They approached the focal point of the commotion, a group of teens squabbling over an overturned cart that had spilled its contents everywhere. Jack surveyed the scene, instinctively taking charge. "We need to help them," he called out, his voice rising above the noise. "Everyone, let's clear a path! Let's clear." As he stepped forward, urging the bystanders to assist, he caught a glance of Sarah's beaming reflection. This wasn't just about managing a mess. It was an opportunity to teach her the value of community, the essence of stepping up when it mattered most. Gone were the days of isolation. This was their moment to confront challenges head-on. Jack joined the fray alongside Sarah and began helping to reorganize the scattered items while urging the onlookers to collaborate. Resilience took tangible form through cooperative effort, a stark contrast to the solitary pursuits Jack had chased for so long. Though it was a small act, the communal determination served as a catalyst for his inner transformation. "See, this is what it means to be here for others," he said, glancing back at Sarah as they lifted crates together. "To take action when things get messy." She nodded, her guilty expressions at his previous mistakes slowly melting away. As they worked, moments of laughter sparked amidst the strife. The collection of shared efforts fluttered like petals in the spring breeze. Jack could see the effort enhancing the camaraderie between them, rebuilding the bonds that had frayed over time. Each triumph, no matter how small, felt monumental. In the midst of this bustling activity, he suddenly received a message on his phone. It was a notification from a local community center, applauding his efforts in business development for neighborhood enterprises. He hadn't expected such recognition for initiatives fueled more by passion than by obligation. "Hey Sarah, look at this!" he exclaimed, a lump forming in his throat as he shared the momentary victory with her. "I've been asked to mentor aspiring entrepreneurs. They see something in me." Her eyes lit with understanding. She recognized that his achievements were more than accolades. They represented the tangible manifestation of his commitment to change. It wasn't merely validation. It was a testament to the evolution occurring within him. No longer was Jack merely a builder of structures. He was becoming a builder of relationships, capped by mutual respect. Jack smiled as warmth washed over him. He embraced this recognition not just for himself, but as a herald of hope for Sarah, a concrete achievement that underscored his newfound values. Voicing this to her, he continued, "This isn't just about business. It's about nurturing potential, inspiring others to take charge of their destinies." The blossoming understanding reflected in her eyes reassured him that their bond was decidedly mending. "And you've shown me that no matter how messy life gets, we can always clean it up together," he added, nudging her playfully. As the cleanup finally tapered off, he allowed himself to pause and reflect. This moment was a significant departure from the man he had used to be, the father consumed by ambition, who often forgot the very essence of connection. He had stepped down into the tumultuous arena of life and emerged with newfound clarity. Standing side by side with Sarah, they surveyed the remnants of the scene. Laughter echoed, camaraderie built within the community. In her eyes, Jack saw pride and trust blooming, a flicker of hope transformed into a blazing flame. "Jack!" someone called from the crowd, offering a shout of appreciation. At that moment, Jack felt again the importance of support that went beyond platitudes or monetary gestures. It was woven into advocating for each other, the very lifeblood of family and community. And as the day waned, Jack understood that this journey was ongoing. His commitment to honest connection, the hard-earned recognition through service, and the replenished relationships had cemented a renewed identity. He had not only journeyed through chaos, but had truly begun to understand what personal achievement meant. Transformational, tireless work sharpened by empathy. "So, what's next?" Sarah asked, a hint of excitement swirling in her tone as she nudged him with her shoulder. Jack chuckled, a sense of invigoration, grounded in possibility swelling within him. "Anything we want, kiddo. Together." As they walked side by side, Jack marveled at how one harrowing night had shifted his entire narrative. He no longer viewed life solely through the lens of his constructed empire. Instead, he had positioned the foundation of his worth on authenticity, humility, and renewed devotion to his most treasured relationship of all. And this was no longer merely a resolution to become a better father. It was the realization of an achieved dream, to nurture, to build, and to elevate those he cared for with unwavering resilience. Now, reflect on this transformation, because the journey of personal growth is limitless, and every day presents an opportunity to redefine your identity and aspirations. As Jack and Sarah walked into the emerging twilight, each knew they had already begun crafting their own legacy, together. Before you go, take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Those who truly understand the power of personal overcoming need to support this journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your voices matter, so comment your thoughts and reactions about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. The moment of truth is here. Let's inspire and uplift together.